Hello. My name is Julia, and I'm a student of American literature. I'd love to tell you about my life in United States and my fantastic teacher. You can read my story and learn English with me. It's a beautiful day in the autumn, and I'm traveling on a train. There are two women on the train with me. They're sitting opposite me, speaking English. I don't understand much, but I'm studying English and trying my best. I'm still a beginner, but I'm learning. I didn't know many words, but I began speaking to the women. I said some words in basic English, and the women understood what I wanted to say. I was so happy. I told them that I want to learn English, and they told me that they are from America. They were going home from a conference. Our conversation was 10 minutes long. The next station was my station, and I said goodbye. The women gave me their address and phone number. They told me that I can visit them in America. Then we said goodbye. In this meeting, I worked on my English every day. In 6 months, my English was already pretty good, but I wanted to learn more. So I went to United States to study English. When I was in United States, I joined a school. My first lesson was on Monday. I met my teacher and other students in the class. My teacher was a young, lovely lady. She was very nice and humble. We introduced ourselves, and then we started the lesson. She asked us a question to get to know us better. She wanted to know our general knowledge about the language. Our teacher told us that she can teach us in a very effective way to learn English. This method was very simple. Our teacher told us that we would not have to study. We wouldn't have to read textbooks, but we would have to use English a lot in our daily lives. It turned out very effective for me. I didn't like studying from textbooks because they confused me. Then we spoke about what is important when we learn a new language. Our teacher told us that language is a purpose and a mode for communication. We need languages to communicate. Languages help us to express ideas and thoughts. So when you learn a new language, the best method is to use the language to express our feelings and to communicate with other people as well. And this is what we will do in our course. We will speak and make use of the English language a lot. Many students try to remember new words. They also study grammar rules. These students don't use when it comes to speaking. Many students focus on studying the language but don't use it much. Of course, it's important to learn new words and grammar, but you don't have to study them. You just need to practice them every day. In this course, I'm excited to show you a simple and effective way to learn vocabulary and grammar. As our teacher said, our lesson continues. We spoke about our hobbies and what we like to do in our free time. We spoke in pairs, or I really enjoyed taking classes with our teacher. I'm so happy that this system of learning turned out to be so good and effective for me. In Chapter 2, I learned how I learned vocabulary. On Tuesday, I went to school again. One of the students asked a really interesting question: what is the best way to learn new words? Our teacher told us that there are many ways to learn new words. I'm going to tell you the most effective way for learning new words. It's reading. People read, and they learn new words in their language. They learn twice as fast as people who don't read. It's a great idea to read for at least 30 minutes every day. I'd love to show you what you can do to get the most out of reading. First, it's really important that the book or text you read is interesting to you. You should enjoy reading the book. It can be a nice story, or it can be fictional or non-fiction. Whatever the book is about, if you don't like it, don't read it. It's totally okay to get frustrated when you don't know many words. We've all been there. It's so important to enjoy everything you do while using the language. Choose a text that's interesting and at your level. If you don't understand a word, take a dictionary and find the word in the dictionary. Look it up. When you look up a word in a dictionary, you'll understand the text better and you'll know more about the words you read. You won't have to write the word down, it'll just stick in your mind. And every time you see the word again, you'll remember what it means. Reading is a great way to learn new words and to understand how they fit in with other words. As you can see, linking words correctly is a great way to learn new words. It's really effective. Give it a try and you'll be amazed at how quickly you can learn new words. Then we'll move on to the next lesson, where we'll chat about the situation in America and the best jobs for students. This is great for me because I'm looking for a job and something to do in my spare time after school. I asked other students if they knew where I could find a job and they told me. I was really happy to find out that I should go to a job center. It offers a lot of jobs, especially for students like me. When my day at school was over, I went to the job center. I didn't know what job I could do, so I asked the lovely lady at the job center what the best job for a student would be. She was so helpful. She told me that they have some great jobs for students. I was so excited to tell her that I have no experience with these jobs. She was really encouraging and told me that my English is good enough to work at the cafe. The training was not difficult and I can have more chances to speak English than being a cleaner. She told me that I can start my job on Thursday, which I was really happy about. I am so grateful to have a job where I can practice English. On Wednesday, I went back to school. There was one student in the class who was quieter than the others. He's from South Korea. When our teacher asked if we had any questions, this student from Korea raised his hand. He said he had a big problem with pronunciation. He knew his pronunciation wasn't perfect, but he didn't know how to improve it. He doesn't speak much because he doesn't have anyone to listen to. His pronunciation could use some work, but he's doing his best. He said that he reads and watches films in English a lot, and he understands very well. He's also interested in improving his speaking skills. When my teacher heard this, she said, "Okay, I will tell you something about pronunciation and how to practice it. I will also teach you techniques which can help all of you to become better at pronunciation. First, we have to look at why students have problems with pronunciation. When we speak, we have our mouths are made up of muscles, and we all use them when we speak. But sometimes, when we're learning English, we might use our muscles in the same way we would in our native language. This can make our pronunciation different from the way native speakers would say it. This happens to many students learning English, and it's totally normal. People usually understand what you're trying to say, even if your pronunciation isn't perfect. You can work on your pronunciation and make it better with a great technique that can help you a lot. The name of this technique is shadowing. It's very simple. When you do shadowing, you simply copy the sound that you hear. When children learn their first language, they learn it by copying. They copy after their parents again and again. One day, their pronunciation becomes perfect. If you can learn English pronunciation the same way, this is what you can do. Take some videos or audio recordings. It's a great technique that you can use to improve your pronunciation. It's not fast, but you can understand it well. All you have to do is listen and copy what you hear. That's it. Then, our wonderful teacher went to youtube.com and searched for the shadowing technique. She found some great videos where the shadowing technique was demonstrated really well. We watched the video and then tried shadowing for about 3 minutes. It was so much fun. Our teacher told us that shadowing is also a great way to prepare for an English presentation. If you want to have good pronunciation before a presentation, you can go to a place where you're alone and do shadowing for about 10 minutes. You'll see how much it helps you have better pronunciation during the presentation. This was very interesting for me. I hadn't heard about this technique before. When the lesson finished, I went to the school reception and asked the lady if there are any sports activities at school. I'd like to do some sports in America. The lady at the receptionist was so nice and helpful. She told me that the school has a table tennis team and a football team. The football team has training today at 5 o'clock. I was so happy to hear that because I love sports. I went to the training of the football team and met so many players from different countries. They were from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I really enjoyed the training. I was so happy that my time in America started well. My teacher is great, and I also have some new friends from my football team. The team also has a practice tomorrow. I'm starting my job as well. When you want to have a good pronunciation, repeat after native speakers on Thursday. I went to school again. We had a new student in our class. Her name is Elizabeth, and she is from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, my teacher asked Elizabeth some questions. My teacher knows Elizabeth because Elizabeth visited her class 1 year ago. It was a class for beginners, and it was only for 2 weeks during the autumn holiday. When Elizabeth speaks, she speaks so beautifully. Her pronunciation is excellent, and she is so fluent. My teacher was absolutely delighted and told Elizabeth that her school in Italy must be very good. Elizabeth replied, "I don't go to any school. I learn English at home using techniques that I learned from you. I do a lot of reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think more in English than in Italian, and this is how I work on my English. The 2 weeks that I spent last autumn at your class were so beneficial. You were so helpful. You showed me how to work on my English every day. That's why I wanted to join your class again. 1 year ago, I was a beginner, but now I can speak English. I want to learn from you again." My teacher was so happy when she heard these words. She appreciated Elizabeth for her hard work. It's all very interesting for me. I already know about reading. I also know the shadowing technique, but Elizabeth also speaks about thinking aloud. I'm not quite sure what it is, so I asked our teacher. She kindly explained that it is a very effective technique. If you want to benefit from this technique, you have to have a strong motivation to learn English. It is also good to know that for some people this technique is a little unusual, but when you start to think aloud, your English can be better very fast. I told her I have a strong motivation and that I don't care if the technique is unusual. It might sound a little crazy, but it really works. I want to learn. Can you teach us this technique? It's actually very simple. You think in your native language all day, and that's okay. Now you can start to think in English, and when you start to think in English, you can think aloud. You simply say aloud what you think. It's as simple as that. Why is it so effective? Our teacher says maybe you can ask Elizabeth. She uses this technique, and she can tell you more. Our teacher asked Elizabeth if she could tell us more about this technique. She was happy to help. When she first started thinking in English, it was a bit tricky. She said, I started with simple sentences like, I can speak English, it's good that I can speak English, I want to be better, and I need to practice every day. She also said that she doesn't know many words yet, but she can use the words she knows. I can say my ideas with these words. I can do this. This is great. The sentences were really simple, but at the beginning, there was one problem. My thinking in Italian was long and complicated. I was not able to say in English exactly what I meant, but I said in Italian. I needed to find a simpler form for English. Thinking in simple English was the hardest part, but after some time, it was normal for me to think in English. Then something interesting happened. I met a man from Australia who was on holiday in Italy. I was still a beginner, but we started to speak English. I was so happy to find that I was able to speak with him without having problems. My sentences were simple and short, but I was able to speak. I didn't translate in my head from Italian to English. After the meeting with the man from Australia, I started to use thinking aloud more. This technique helped me a lot with my speaking. I still use it every day. It is really a very effective technique. Our teacher thanked Elizabeth for her experience with thinking aloud. I wanted to use this technique because I also wanted to get better at speaking. When you want to speak English fluently, think aloud. I want to give you an extra advice when you want to learn English. Read, listen, think, and speak. Do each activity for 40 minutes every day. You can read, listen, and shadow hearing our base English stories. The voiceover in this video is given by English. Our teacher was really grateful to Elizabeth for sharing her experience with thinking aloud. I wanted to use this technique because I also wanted to get better at speaking English fluently. When you want to learn English, I think it's really helpful to think aloud. I'd also like to give you some extra advice. When you want to learn English, read, listen, think and speak. Do each of these activities for 40 minutes every day. You can read, listen, and shadow hearing our base English stories. The voiceover in this video is given by English Artistry.